Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name's Simon Hodgkins. Today, it's a real pleasure to be joined by Maeva Cifuentes. Maeva, you're very welcome to the show. I'm going to maybe start asking you to tell us a little bit about the world of SEO and search and all that good stuff, because I know you've worked a lot with businesses and you've got quite a bit of expertise in this area. So welcome to the show, Maeva.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here today.
Well, let's dive into it then. So, SEO, search engine optimization, the fact of a business wanting to get found on, it was always, can you get me found? Can I get on the first page of Google? That sort of urban myth. And also, how do I put my best content out there? But the world of search has changed a little bit, hasn't it? Where are we at with search? What role is AI playing in it from your perspective, maybe, as somebody who knows a lot about this area?
So you hit the nail on the head that search has been changing a lot, to the point where certain businesses ranking on #1 position means nothing because they're not getting clicks anymore. This isn't the case across the board. We've seen in the last year, big businesses, a lot of them are seeing massive declines in traffic from organic search. And there were a lot of conclusions or hypotheses saying this is because AI was taking away their traffic, but that wasn't really the case. A lot of the time they were being penalized for not penalized, but Google was looking for websites that are more focused in the topics that they write about. So a big example is HubSpot lost 80% of its traffic in the last year or two, which was millions of visits, because it was publishing on a lot of things that were outside of its scope of expertise. So there were things like shrug emoji or jokes or just very top of funnel stuff. They were the ones who invented inbound marketing. So they were kind of publishing about anything. They lost all that traffic and it went to other publishers that were more related to that. So it's not that the traffic disappeared, it just went elsewhere. And their stock price increased when that happened because they actually didn't lose any business from that. So that's one thing that people kind of have to shift. They actually grew in business because there are pages that were related to the product, those started performing better. But those, since they were closer to the bottom of the funnel, the volume was much lower. So all they saw was the traffic drop, but actually business was improving. So we see all these things. Everybody's making big conclusions from out of context data points and saying traffic is disappearing. There are many things that are making it go down right now. And I think we're biggest hit by these very large websites. There are other things like unclean technical SEO. We saw with one client, we had been advising to make some technical fixes since last August, but it had always gotten deprioritized. And then when the March update hit, we lost so much traffic, it was like a cliff. And it was because of these technical issues that had been popping up. As soon as we started fixing them, then suddenly it became a priority. And as soon as we started fixing them, the traffic shot back up. So there's a lot of things happening right now in search, but one thing that is also happening is click-through rate is declining. So yes, traffic from Google is declining. 2025 is going to be the peak year of traffic. We're never going to get back to the levels that we are at now. It's only going to go down from here because of AI overviews. So knowing that the majority of people still use Google, we're still measuring performance on Google traffic. Google now has AI overviews, which initially took up a small percentage of query results. Now, since the March update, it's a much larger percentage and it's taking up more space to the point where on page 1, if you're in position 1, it still might be at the bottom of the page. So, and there might only be 2 positions for links in the whole page. Yes, you can show up as a citation in AI overviews, and people might click on you through there, but they're less likely to click on the AI overview citation than click on a blue link. So we are losing traffic from that. But again, you do want to appear in these AI overviews. They might still get the information, they might still buy. We're having to shift the way that we possibly measure search or measure the results from search, because I don't think that the old way that we talked about keyword rankings or even total non-branded traffic, that's not really going to work anymore, because we need to be focusing on the lagging indicators now, maybe how it's delivering in terms of revenue, how it's performing in those other ways. And we kind of have to redefine the way that we're measuring it, because it's still important. People are always going to search, but we're going to have to do things differently. And also LLM visibility is becoming really important to companies. I think it's probably currently being overhyped. I think people are taking away too many resources from traditional search and putting it into AI overviews, because still the majority of traffic comes from traditional search. If you look at any metrics, it's only going to be about 6% maximum that is coming from LLM. But everybody's trying to put their eggs in that basket because it's the next thing coming up. I don't think we should immediately like totally switch all of our efforts to there, but a lot of the efforts of doing good SEO is going to pay off in terms of LLM visibility, and that means showing up in those responses. And there could be a few ways you do that. It's either your brand name is mentioned when a user asks for a list of tools or providers, services, whatever. Or it could be that your informational content gets cited. So it's still trying to figure out what's the goal here? How am I going to measure if it worked? And I feel like it's turning a little bit more into organic social, in the sense that you might not actually expect referral traffic. And it's harder to measure what's happening, what's working and what's not working. I have a feeling that's the direction that performance measurement of SEO is going.
Well, it's so good, Maeva, to speak with somebody that's right at the forefront of this, and it's obvious that you've got your finger on the pulse in this area. I want to go back, if I can, to something that you said though. So it sounds from what you're saying, there's definitely a long tail with traditional search still to play out, and it's still the vast majority. So people still need to get that right, obviously. And also, I thought what was fascinating is with the sort of assumption, because the AI news is everywhere, right? It's an AI news frenzy that everybody's rushing, as you say, to put all their eggs into that basket and forgetting or neglecting the traditional search. Now, I suppose a brand needs to do both. And I thought the example you gave of HubSpot in that particular case, where they saw a lot of decline in traffic, but actually the traffic that they were getting was probably more in line with the type of customer that they want. And you're talking a bit, could you expand a bit more on that sort of domain expertise? And I'm going to use the term posting sort of within your lane or your area, because traditionally some companies, whatever noise you could make to get the awareness at the top of the funnel was sort of the strategy, and then people would filter in and you'd filter it out. But you're saying actually that's not working like it used to. You need to be a bit more on topic. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, they're looking for not just who publishes the best content on this, but who is the person who's most authoritative to publish on this topic? Who are we going to trust the most? So a lot of people, like you said, they had this theory, or it's either they had a theory that it was going to trickle down, or they were getting pressure from execs who thought SEO's only job was to build traffic, so they optimize everything for traffic. So that makes you do things that you probably shouldn't be doing if you're optimizing for revenue. So they go after really top of funnel. And when I say top of funnel, it's like outer space top of funnel, which is just not related to the product or the audience. For example, if you run a sales engagement platform, some of these tools will publish pages that are sales memes or sales GIFs. So there's an argument for that. It says sales on it. We're probably going to attract salespeople, but it's not in the buyer's journey. So I feel like there is a top of the funnel that is within the buyer's journey. So if I say sales engagement, bottom of the funnel is going to be a sales engagement platform with a list of platforms. If I say middle of the funnel, it might be I don't know, or bottom of the funnel might be this sales engagement platform versus that sales engagement platform. The next one up might be types of sales engagement platforms. Do I want one that integrates with my CRM, or is it better to get a standalone one that's expert in what it does? And then top of the funnel is how do I save time for my sales reps? How can my sales reps do more with less time? So it is top of the funnel because they're not yet looking for the software, but it's all a part of the buyer. It's like related to the pain points that they're having. So this is still, I would still recommend doing this. Everybody has different definitions of what top of the funnel is. That kind of top of the funnel keep doing, but the kind of top of the funnel that's maybe tangentially related to the industry, or if you're in a sales engagement platform and you're talking about the SaaS industry in general, that's probably too far.
Yeah, makes
So,
sense.
yeah.
Makes sense. And I want to ask you as well, you touched on AI and, how I suppose businesses, brands today, they're trying to get their company name or something, a link from them or something to show up in the result that the AI is showing. And that seems to be somewhere between a mystery and a trial at the moment. Maybe you have a different view on that, but how can a brand start to sort of walk into that area where maybe they're doing what you're saying, they're doing it right, they got their right sort of stories and the algorithm likes what they're doing on traditional search, but they also need to start working in AI because that's the way it's going, right? So how does a brand or a business today, whether they're a tiny business or a global business, how do they start thinking about, well, how do I actually turn up in search? Because it seems turn up in the AI result, I should say, because it seems a very different mechanic to what we're used to. And businesses, are they doing a good job here at the moment, Maeva? What's your thinking on this?
This is still a black box and everybody's throwing spaghetti at the wall right now. There's no playbook and there are no best practices that exist yet. It's first of all, it just appeared. Second of all, it's changing so fast that and any theory that somebody was like, this works, probably has already changed by now. But there are some patterns that we're seeing. One is a lot of the regular traditional SEO best practices do support showing up in LLMs because a lot of LLMs pull from the index. They pull from the top ranking index. So if you appear, you're going to be likely to appear. Not all of them, but Perplexity, ChatGPT uses the Bing index actually. So it pulls from that. So if you are ranking in those, that's already a good thing. Then we have technical SEO, which was semi-important in traditional SEO. Now it's becoming even more important in traditional SEO as well, because Google is becoming less forgiving. But LLMs are much less forgiving because their bots need the technical SEO to understand what's going on. So this is things like keeping your architecture super clean, schema markup, and just making sure Google understands what the page is about. Then we have things that are a little bit harder to control. And this is a lot related to the brand. And you have to also understand the different types of LLMs. So there are LLMs that are pulling from the index only, which is going to be AIOs. You can influence that really fast. There are people who publish things and within hours it's already in the AIOs. So even faster than the regular Google index. Perplexity, if you do GPT search alone, those all pull from an index. So those are easier to influence. Then you have the GPTs that are trained, that just have the pre-training data. Claude and some other ones, they only have pre-training data. They are not influenced by what you are doing in the short term. You cannot make your name appear in the short term. But in the long term, there might be some plays that you can do to get into the pre-training data. And then there's hybrid ones. ChatGPT itself is hybrid. It has its pre-training data and it can use its search functionality depending on what kind of model you're using. So that's like medium influence. Now, Kevin Indig, who runs the Growth Memo, he's a very well-known SEO consultant. He did a study and found that the number one most influential factor in appearing in LLM responses is branded search volume. So that means if you look in a keyword research tool and put in your brand name and you can see how many people have searched for you in that month, if you have a higher number, you are more likely to appear. So if the global discussion, if 200 people have searched for it this month, And there's another global discussion or podcast on the same topic, and only 10 people have searched for it that month. You're more likely to appear in a response for what's a great business podcast. So this is really hard to influence, because you would think that that's the SEO's responsibility, but we need investment in brand. We need social, there's also social media following that has been found to influence the number of people that are following you. All these other kind of signals that show that your brand is important. This is very hard to influence if you're a sole SEO and you don't have the budget or time to do brand work, which is generally not in the SEO's purview. That's really hard to influence. There have been other tests of something called surround sound SEO, which was coined by Alex Burkett when he worked at HubSpot. And this is the idea of not only ranking yourself in the category page of, for example, top business podcasts, but you go out to every other article that is in the top 10 for best business podcasts, and you get them to link to your page. Now, this is a lot trickier than regular link building, because most of these are going to be competitors or just, really great websites, and they are not going to just put your link on there for anything. So you need something to be able to give them. And again, that's going to be the only thing you can really give them is your clout back if you have it. So it worked really well for HubSpot, because you could tell anybody, I will link you on my HubSpot podcast, and they'll be like, or on my HubSpot blog, if you put me in this list. Of course they're going to do it. Who doesn't want to be linked to from HubSpot? But if you're not as popular as HubSpot, then you have to find something else that you can give them. Money is not going to work in this case for most of them. So it's almost, can I get my page to rank regular SEO above them and say, look, I'm above you now. If you could have made it to the top without already listing them, which is a trick on its own. But if you can make it above them maybe and say, I'll put you in my list if you put me in your list. These are kind of trades you can make, but you always have to come and think, what can I give to them strategically? So this process has been seen to help a lot get into the pre-training database, build a brand, because you start to appear in more of these. And also Google starts to associate your name with this entity of whatever it is that you're optimizing for. So there's been other techniques that we've seen. We started doing something called writing for NLP, which is a way to write in a way that makes it easier for NLP to parse. So avoiding, really long convoluted paragraphs, really dividing, adding clarity at the point, making the point at the front, at the top, and then going into the details. There's a lot of these writing techniques that might help you get picked up by AI, because it's easier for them to make sense of it. And then there's even things like, we have a robots.txt file. Some people are implementing an LLM.txt file, mixed reviews about whether that's doing anything or not. But there's a lot of different things that are getting tried right now, and nobody really knows what is actually working or not.
Yeah, it's back to that black box. But I thought the experimentation around that sort of LLM .txt stuff is interesting, and also the importance, I suppose, outside of the traditional SEO world, that the brand building seems
Yeah.
to be still really important as we make this switch, albeit in small percentages at the moment. But that brand building is going to be important. And where are we on? I know you've touched on it, but things like the traditional things like alt text and images, naming your image correctly, just basic keywords and metadata. Like, how much is that still playing a key role right now?
Alt text and just defining, that's a part of schema markup in its own way. It's being able to explain to the bot that's crawling it what it's looking at. So that's still kind of useful. Meta descriptions don't really matter, to be honest. There's been some studies found that even if you delete meta descriptions, it performs better than if you optimize and write them. So I wouldn't waste time on that. And then keywords are still important, but knowing that they are going to lose search volume as people learn to start searching differently. The searches are going to become way more complex. It's not going to be, I need to see, it's not going to be small business CRM It's going to be, I need a CRM that allows me to plug into the laws in Austria and connect to this so I can pull this data. It's going to be all like a lot more specific. So keyword search volume on its own is going to go down and down and down and down and down to the point where in a few years, everything's going to be zero because there's going to be so many different ways that people are searching for something. So it's going to be more about themes, about entities, about topics, search intent in general. And we're going to have to find ways to just be very explicit on the pages. If you're looking for a CRM that's powered by AI and helps me connect these things, there's a lot of these websites still that talk about their AI section and they just talk about how cool AI is. And it's all very generic, but you'll have to be very specific in those pages to say, we can do this, this is a use case, this is a use case, so that I can pull from that and start understanding this. So that's already going to be better serving the search intent anyway, but we really have to start thinking about those kind of things. So right now I'm still using keywords, but I'm exploring ways that we might be able to come up with a strategy that's still data driven. That's what's really hard right now is because LLMs are a black box and you don't really know what prompts people are looking for. And in any case, they're going to be expressing them all in a different way. So there's still some exploration to do in that sense, but I suspect that keywords are going to be obsolete in the next few years.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I suppose it comes back to a little bit of what you're talking about writing for NLP, writing for these um, black boxes, I suppose. And it's interesting. It sounds like we're saying, well, we can influence some of it. We can't influence others. Maybe we can get into some training data. Others we can't right now, but maybe in the future. And a lot of trial and error. But thank you for sharing that. It's so insightful, Maeva. I really appreciate your expertise here. I'm going to switch gears just as we come to the end here, if you don't mind, because I want to ask you about something else that I know you've been involved in the past. And you do quite a bit of work with sort of working on confidence and working with ambitious women and things like that. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that side of things in your world?
Sure. I'm very excited about this. So this is a journey I've taken myself on. Initially, so I started a podcast and a coaching service called Purposeful Living. Initially, it was very holistic. So everything from health, leaning into your feminine, building confidence as a woman, all these kind of things. And I'm shifting it now. I did take a little hiatus, but I'm going back into it this year. And I'm shifting it more to women who want to actually become leaders and think strategically. And so we're kind of stepping away from the personal life for the moment and going into the professional. It also has to do a lot with your personal well-being and mindset and those kind of things, but more, for example, ambitious women who are still in junior roles and want to figure out what does it take to get into a senior role or just to start thinking more senior, or women who are constantly told to be more strategic. What does that actually mean? How do you be strategic? How do you speak to executives and show up at the same level as an executive? So those are the kind of things that I'm coaching on. And I'm really excited about it. I think there's a lot of information about this in general, but the position that women come from, I think just really puts them in a different mindset. It's a different kind of challenge because we are, kind of trained or raised to be not offending anybody, be very community based, try to be at the same level as everybody else. And so being able to step into a leadership role comes with different kinds of challenges. There's a lot of fear as well about being called aggressive or a B word or those kind of things. So kind of overcoming those fears and finding a way to do it that's still, in your own, like feeling womanly the way that you're doing it, and not having to copy just how it's done status quo across how all the men are doing it. There's a different way to do it that's still super effective, and that's what the knowledge I'm trying to bring, which I have learned over my years of running a business and selling to executives.
Sounds like an exciting time ahead. Thank you for sharing that. Look, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, is there any advice or parting thoughts you'd like to share with our worldwide audience? And secondly, and importantly, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place to point them to, Maeva?
So I'll answer the second question first, but the second question is LinkedIn. I'm super active on LinkedIn. Reach out, let me know that you know me from this episode, but I kind of accept anybody anyway, unless in your message you're asking me to buy links from you. I don't. Second, some parting thoughts. There's a lot of AI hype. This is also for managers. There's a lot of pressure to figure out all of the AI stuff and to start implementing it ASAP. There's not time. People need to realize there's in an existing role, it's very hard to find the time to redo your entire processes and also hit the goals that you have set. The goal should maybe be for that time period, figure it out. So don't be so hard on yourself if you haven't figured it out fully yet. I've been speaking to many, many, many people. Most people don't have it figured out yet. They're still dabbling. Try to take the time if you can, but also find a way to show that the depth that is required to meet the quality, because the idea is AI should enhance what you do, not just cut time. It needs to be better, make what you're doing better. So find a way to stand up for yourself that way, or if you're on the other end of that, do realize that resources are needed in the sense of either time, different goals, or training to be able to adopt as we need to adopt.
That's some really good parting thoughts. Thank you, Maeva. And that brings us nicely to the end of this particular episode of the Global Discussion. Firstly, I want to thank our entire audience around the world for watching and listening to us here, and also ask you to follow, like, subscribe to everything I need you to do to help support the channel. Go and connect with Maeva over on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. And hopefully you'll join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers, just like Maeva Cifuentes. But thank you, Maeva. Such a pleasure. And thanks for sharing some great insights with us today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being on. See you.